This is where we're going to figure out exactly what is being asked of us and then figure out what we don't know. So it's asking for the surface area. So I know the surface area formula is given on my formula sheet, so I'm going to go look that up, and I see it. It's the same as what we just did. So surface area is 1/2 times the slant height, or S, times the perimeter of the base, and then to that, I'm going to add the area of the base. Is it height or slant height? Does it say, it says height. You're completely right, Ava and Chloe. I put that in the wrong spot there. It doesn't say slant. I got a bit ahead of myself. So it says a height of 8 meters. So we're going from the center to the center. So from the apex to the middle of the base. I apologize. Thanks for keeping an eye on me. All right, so that's 8 meters, which is a big difference. I spent so much time telling you to not confuse the two at the beginning, and then I go ahead and confuse it here on the second question. All right, so we need to figure out what we need and what we don't need. If I look at my formula, I have this 1/2, that's good. I'm asked to find the slant height in order to use the formula, but I don't have the slant height. So I'm going to write a little note here, just to remind you and me, we don't have slant height. The perimeter of the base, we can get that because it's just the 6 and the 4 and the 6 and the 4. And the base area is a rectangle, so that's just going to be length times width. So I have everything except for the slant height, and I need to figure out what that's going to be. So I'm going to just draw another little picture here. Maybe I'll pick the color green. I'm going to go from the apex down to where I had my line before, and then I'll just draw a little dotted line back to the middle. This turns out to be a right angled triangle, and I'm just going to redraw that green triangle here. So this is my apex. This is the height of my pyramid in blue, and then the two lines I've drawn are this guy out to here, and then the dotted one there. So all I've done is taken that little triangle outside of the inside of the rectangular pyramid, and now I've just redrawn it. So what do I know about this triangle? Well, I know in the question it tells me that the height of the pyramid is 8 meters. I'm trying to find this S, slant height, we'll call it S. And then I have this bottom, the dotted line. Does anybody know the length of that dotted line? It has to do with, if you think about the picture here that I've drawn, if I drew another dotted line out here, what would that do to this side of 4? Yeah, so what it's doing is just cutting this side in half. So if I know the whole side is 4 meters, I know half of it is going to be 2 meters. So that, it's actually given to us, we just need to do a little bit of mental math to get that far. So I have a right angled triangle now, and I need to figure out the slant height. Because once I get that S, I can plug it into my formula here, up above, and then I know everything else. So to find the slant height, I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem again, because I have a right angled triangle. A squared plus B squared is C squared. The only important thing about the Pythagorean theorem is that the hypotenuse of the longest side needs to be C. So in this case, my C is going to be my S. And then the 2 and the 8 don't really matter. So I'm going to take my 2 squared, use the bottom. I'm going to add to it this 8 squared, and I'm going to end up with the s squared. So 2 times 2 is 4. 8 times 8 is going to be 64. 4 plus 64 is s squared. And 4 and 64 together give me 68. Run out of room, I'll just bump it up here. 68 is equal to s squared. Now, 68 isn't a perfect square, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides to give me just s. So that's an important step here. If s is squared, I need to take the square root of it to get it to be just s. Square root of 68 is 8.246. And that is going to be what I need to plug into my formula up above. So I'm going to kind of go back to the formula and plug it in. So again, all these steps just to be able to use this formula. It seems kind of crazy, but that's, I guess, why we're doing this stuff. So the surface area, I'll just rewrite it. I'm going to write perimeter of base kind of like that. And then I'm going to write area of the base like that. So just shorthand you might see from time to time. All right, I know everything now. I have 1/2. This s, I'm just going to bring from down here. I have 8.24. The perimeter of the base is, I have the 6 and the 4, so I'm just going to have 2 of each of those. So I'm going to have, I'll just write it out. 6 plus 6 plus 4 plus 4. And then I'm going to add to that the area of the base. As a reminder, I know you guys know the area of a rectangle is just going to be length times width. So I'm going to write that in as well. And in this case, I have a length of 6, and I'm going to multiply it by a width of 4. So order of operations says I need to do my multiplication first, or brackets first in this case, after. So I'm going to have, writing everything down again, 1/2, 8.24 times 6 and 6 is 12, plus 4, 16, plus another 4 is 20. And then I'm going to do what's in this bracket, 6 times 4 is going to give me 24. Continuing with BEDMAS, I can do my multiplication, then I can do that addition at the end. So I'm going to have that 8.24 times 1/2, or times 0.5, multiplied by 20. I'm going to get 82.46. And then I'm going to add to that 24. 106.46. Everything was in meters and meters squared. If I just look back up to the question again, I see that everything needs to be the nearest meter. So instead of 106.46, I'm just going to have 106 meters squared. There you go. Again, it's all a lot of stuff, but all things you've done before. So if you can just break it into small pieces, you shouldn't have too much difficulty with this stuff. Now, I know we didn't make it through the whole lesson. The next thing, if I just quickly look here, it's the same process except it's right cones. And then we're just going to do it the same way. And you can see that the formula here, the surface area pi r s pi r squared, it's actually a little bit easier than what we just did because we have the radius and the s, I will warn you that you're going to have to make a right angled triangle with these questions as well. And that's going to be kind of the same sort of process. So hopefully after you guys go through this a few times, maybe do a little bit of the practice, it'll start making more sense. And Taylor already chimed in and said it's making more sense after 2 questions, which is really good. So go into the practice, do as much as you can. If you want to try some of those cone questions, that's fine. I'm going to continue on with this sheet next day. So I'm going to go through the cone stuff next day. So if you can get into the practice and do a couple of the right rectangular pyramid questions or any of the right pyramid questions, that would be really good. I'll go through the cone stuff tomorrow, and we'll see if I can maybe get into the volume stuff, which is the next lesson as well. But it's a bit slow going because there's so many steps. So that's it for my time for today. Mrs. Ward isn't on, and I think you guys are probably have enough time to get some math stuff done today. So you don't have to hand in the practices, Abby, no. The practices are just for you and me. So next class, if you guys come to class and you have a question, just like I did today, I'm going to go through any questions you might have had, and then hopefully we can kind of clear that up. I don't want you to hand them in. The only thing I'm going to get you to submit at the end is the learning guide that was at the very beginning. So I'm going to have a look through that and make sure that you have a good grasp of all the ideas that are in there. And then once I've looked through your learning guide and it looks like you're ready to write that test, I'll give you the password for the test, and then you can go ahead and write that. But we'll talk about that next week, because we still probably have another 3 or 4 classes of this particular unit before we are ready for the test. So I'm going to sign off now. Thanks very much. If you have any questions, I'll be in chat here for a little bit afterwards. And have a great afternoon, guys.